Welcome to Reddit for Sleep, where stories whisper you to rest. Every night, we bring you 1 hour of real, emotional, and thought-provoking Reddit stories from confessions and a whole dilemmas to deep relationship drama and wholesome life moments. All read in a calm, comforting voice designed to help you unwind, relax, and drift of peacefully. Dim the lights, get cozy, and let your mind wander as we explore the lives, secrets, and stories of everyday people. New bedtime episodes every night. Perfect for sleep, relaxation, or just late night company. Subscribe and let the stories carry you into dreamland. Am I the hole for kicking my husband's mother out of my house after she opened a letter she wasn't supposed to and exposed a secret that destroyed my marriage? I 30F have been married to my husband, David 33M, for 6 years. We met through work. He was a new project manager. I was on the design team. What started as friendly competition and coffee runs became late nights and shared secrets. He was smart, calm, a little awkward, but incredibly thoughtful. The kind of man who remembered birthdays and always held the door. We got married 2 years after we met, and I truly believed we were soulmates. The first few years of marriage were great. We weren't rich, but we were stable. We traveled, we adopted a dog, we started planning for kids. But the one thorn in our relationship was his mother. Nancy is a force. She's intense, controlling, and always convinced she knows best. She has an opinion on everything: my clothes, my cooking, my job, even how I talk to the dog. She once told me my laugh was a bit too masculine. I learned to bite my tongue, mostly for David's sake. He'd always say, "She means well, just ignore her." But ignoring Nancy is like ignoring a tornado. About a year ago, things got worse. David and I had started IVF. Turns out the issue was with him. Low sperm count, likely from a past infection. He took it hard. I tried to be supportive, but he withdrew, became colder, distant. We stopped having sex. He started sleeping in the guest room. I thought he was depressed. He said he was just tired. During this time, Nancy started coming around more, dropping of food, cleaning, asking inappropriate questions like, "Are you sure it's him and not you?" She even suggested we try with a donor, maybe even someone in the family. I was horrified. I asked David to set boundaries. He didn't. Then came the letter. One afternoon, I came home from work to find Nancy in my kitchen again, reorganizing my spice rack like some sort of suburban dominatrix. I was already on edge, but then I saw it. She was holding an envelope. My name was on it, in handwriting I didn't recognize. It had clearly been opened. I asked her, "Where did you get that?" She said, "It was on the table." I thought it might be important. Important? It was a private letter addressed to me. She had no right. I snatched it from her. My hands were shaking. Inside was a single page, handwritten. The return address was from a woman named Mia. The name meant nothing to me, but the contents. "You don't know me, but I think you deserve the truth. I've been seeing your husband for almost 6 months. I didn't know he was married until recently. When I confronted him, he begged me not to tell you, said you were infertile and cold and that the marriage was already dead. I've stopped seeing him, but you should know what he's been saying about you." I'm sorry. I read it 3 times before I looked up. Nancy was watching me. Her lips pursed like she'd bitten into a lemon. I said, "Did you read this?" She didn't even blink. Of course, I needed to know if it was real. I saw red. I told her to get out. She said I was overreacting, that she had a right to know what's going on in her son's life. I screamed at her. She screamed back. She called me a frigid failure of a wife. I told her if she didn't leave in 10 seconds, I'd call the cops. She left, but not before saying, "You're going to regret treating me this way." I sat down on the floor and sobbed until my chest hurt. David came home later that night. I didn't say anything at first, just handed him the letter. Watched the color drain from his face. He didn't deny it. He just said, "It didn't mean anything." That was almost worse than a lie. Turns out, the woman Mia was a bartender he met at some work event. He claimed it only lasted a few months, that he was lonely, that I pushed him away after the IVF failed, that he never meant to hurt me. I asked him why he didn't just talk to me. He said, "I didn't think you'd listen." I kicked him out the night, told him to go to his mother's. He didn't even protest. Now here's where it gets complicated. That was 2 months ago. In that time, Nancy has declared open war. She's been texting my family members, telling them I overreacted and destroyed her son's life over a one-time mistake. She's posted vague, passive-aggressive Facebook statuses about disloyal wives and private matters being made public. She even had the nerve to show up at my workplace uninvited with homemade cookies for the staff. I work in a corporate marketing firm. It was humiliating. I finally blocked her on everything. David and I are now separated, heading for divorce. I'm in therapy. Some days I feel free, others I feel broken. But I still keep thinking about that moment in the kitchen when I told her to leave. My parents think I was justified. My therapist said it was an appropriate boundary, but a few of my in-laws, especially David's sister, think I should have just taken the letter and talked to David privately. That I escalated the situation. That Nancy's behavior was clueless, not malicious. But how do you accidentally open a sealed letter with someone else's name on it and read the entire thing? How do you find out your son's been cheating and blame the wife? How do you stay quiet? So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for kicking my husband's mother out after she opened a private letter and exposed an affair, even though it led to the collapse of my marriage? Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my dying father's inheritance to my half-brother after finding out he's the reason my parents divorced? I 30 to F was always a daddy's girl. My dad, Thomas, was one of those steady, dependable men. Slow to anger, quick to listen, quiet but fierce in his love for family. He was a high school teacher for 30 years, loved model trains, and cooked the best pancakes on Sunday mornings. My MOM, on the other hand, was the spark. Loud, funny, intense. Sometimes a bit dramatic, but always the life of the party. They were together for 18 years, not perfect, but I believe they were solid. When I was 14, they split suddenly. No big fight, no warning signs I could see. One day, MOM was crying in the kitchen, and the next, Dad was packing a suitcase and saying things like, "We'll still see each other all the time." Okay, kiddo. I remember begging him not to go. He hugged me, kissed my forehead, and left. MOM changed after that. She went from vibrant to hollow almost overnight. She drank more, lost jobs, got bitter. I spent most of my teen years trying to keep us both afloat. Meanwhile, Dad got remarried within a year to a woman named Carla, quiet, reserved, and not particularly warm toward me. They had a son, Jacob, when I was 16. I remember holding him once as a baby. I never did again. Dad never stopped loving me, that much I know. He came to every school play, every graduation. He paid for my college. We had bi-weekly dinners, just the two of us. Even after I moved away, he never bad-mouthed my mother, never explained what really happened between them. I assumed it was just grown-up stuff. Fast forward to years ago. Dad was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The prognosis was grim. I moved back to my hometown to be closer, and we started spending more time together than ever. We talked, laughed, watched movies. He asked about my life, my boyfriend, my job. But there was something he wasn't saying, a heaviness behind his eyes that grew every week. About a month before he died, he asked me to go for a walk. He was thin by then, wrapped in layers and breathing heavily, but determined. We walked to the lake behind his house. He sat on a bench and said, "There's something I need to tell you. I should have told you years ago, but I couldn't bring myself to." Then he told me the truth. When I was 13, he'd started having an affair with Carla. It had been going on for almost a year before he left. My MOM found out when she walked in on them at his school one day, a Saturday, he said. She didn't scream, didn't fight, just walked out, packed his things, told him never to come back. That was it. She never told me the truth because she didn't want to ruin my image of him. She let me believe he was the good one. He said Carla got pregnant soon after the split with Jacob. He married her out of obligation, not love. Said it was a mistake he had to live with, even though he loved Jacob. But he never forgave himself for what he did to MOM. To me, then he told me something else. He had changed his will. Jacob was not in it. Everything, the house, savings, retirement, stocks, the small cabin in Vermont, all of it was left to me. He said, I gave him 18 years of my life. You never asked me to prove anything. But I want to prove it now. I want you to know who was always my heart. I didn't know what to say. I cried. I hated him a little. I loved him still. I held his hand and told him I understood. He died. 2 weeks later, at the funeral, Jacob, 17M, sat beside Carla, dry-eyed. We hadn't spoken much over the years. He was always awkward around me, and I resented his existence without really knowing why. After the service, Carla approached me. She looked tired but composed. She said, "We should talk about the estate." I told her Dad left it all to me. She blinked. "No, that's not possible." "He would never do that." I said he had. She got cold, said I must have manipulated him, that he wasn't in his right mind, that she would contest it. The next week, I got a letter from her lawyer. She and Jacob were filing to challenge the will on grounds of undue influence, that Dad would never have excluded his son. The legal side dragged on for months. I submitted statements from Dad's doctors, hospice workers, even a video he'd recorded 3 days before he passed, stating clearly, shakily, but clearly, that he intended for everything to go to me. Eventually, the court ruled in my favor. The will stood. Jacob was left with nothing, and I mean nothing. Carla had no job. The house was in my name. The bank accounts were frozen during probate. When it was over, I offered her 2 months to vacate. She called me a monster. Jacob finally reached out. He asked to meet. We went for coffee. He looked like a boy trying hard to be a man. He said he didn't care about the money, but he didn't understand why his father hated him in the end. I told him the truth, everything. He sat there silently, absorbing it all. Then he said, "So I was a mistake, a living reminder of what ruined your family." I said, "You were innocent." "But yes, you were part of something that broke people." He nodded slowly. "I wish I'd never been born. That gutted me." I didn't know what to say. So I gave him an envelope. Inside was a check for $50,000, not from guilt, but because I didn't want to be the villain in his story too. Carla refused to take it, called it hush money. Jacob cashed it without telling her. He's now in college. I don't hear from him. My boyfriend thinks I was cruel, that I should have split the inheritance, that punishing a teenage boy for his father's mistake is vindictive, that Dad did enough damage, and I just added to it. But my therapist says boundaries matter, that I honored my mother, that I carried a burden I never asked for and chose truth over comfort. Still, I lie awake some nights wondering if I became the kind of adult I swore I never would, the kind who keeps score. Oh, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for keeping the full inheritance my dad left me and not splitting it with my half-brother after learning the truth about our family's past? Am I the a-hole for leaving my fiancé 2 days before our wedding after finding out the truth about how he got custody of his daughter? I 29F have always believed that life gives you second chances in the strangest ways. For me, that second chance came in the form of a man named LX35M, a single dad with kind eyes, a quiet demeanor, and a daughter who clung to his side like he was her entire world. I met him at a mutual friend's backyard barbecue 3 years ago. He was standing near the grill, trying to coax his then 4-year-old daughter, Lila, into eating a hot dog. She kept shaking her head and demanding watermelon. He looked exhausted, but patient. I brought over a bowl of fruit and offered her a slice. She took it with sticky fingers, then reached for more. Alex smiled at me, and in that instant, I saw something gentle in him. Worn down, but still kind. Our relationship started slow. He was cautious, understandably. He told me up front that Lila came first, that her mother wasn't in the picture, and that he didn't like to talk about the custody stuff. Too complicated, he said. I didn't push. I admired how present he was with her, how he never raised his voice, how he read her the same book 3 times in a row if she asked, how he let her fall asleep in his arms on the couch and never once looked annoyed. It took about 6 months before I spent a night at his place, another 3 before I met Lila properly, not just as Daddy's friend, but as someone who made pancakes and helped her build pillow forts. She warmed up to me quickly, and I adored her. She called me Lee, a nickname she made up when she couldn't pronounce my name. By too. We were serious. We'd moved in together. I had a drawer at his place, then a side of the closet. Then we got a townhouse together near the elementary school she was zoned for. I handled drop-offs when he had early meetings. He cooked dinner when I had late nights at work. We fell into a rhythm. It wasn't glamorous, but it was warm and real. Then he proposed. It was simple, just us, Lila, and a ring tucked into her lunchbox that she proudly poured out at the dinner table and said, "Daddy says you can wear this forever." I cried. I said yes. I thought I had everything I wanted. The wedding was set for May, a small garden ceremony. Close friends, simple flowers. We were 2 days out. I was at the final dress fitting, buzzing with excitement and nerves. My maid of honor, Jess, handed me a glass of champagne and said, You sure you want to do this? I laughed. Of course. Why? She hesitated. Then, she said something that hit like a hammer to the chest. Because I ran into Emma, Lila's MOM. I froze. That couldn't be right. Emma was out of the picture. She hadn't tried to contact Alex or Lila in years. That's what he told me. That's what I believed. Jess continued. She was at the pharmacy I work at. I didn't recognize her at first, but she remembered me. Said she wasn't supposed to say anything, but that you deserve to know the truth. She said Alex lied in court, that he made her look unstable, that she didn't abandon Lila. She said she was erased. I sat down hard on the fitting stool. My heart was pounding. I didn't want to believe it. But something inside me, that quiet, suspicious part I'd always silenced around Alex, started to hum. That night, I waited until Alex was asleep and went into the office. I started pulling files, custody paperwork, court transcripts. I'm a paralegal by profession, but I'd never asked to see the full documents before. I trusted him. What I found made me sick. Yes, Emma had been struggling. She'd had postpartum depression, some erratic behavior, even a brief hospitalization after a panic attack when Lila was 9 months old. But nowhere in the documents did it say she was abusive or neglectful. In fact, the court transcripts painted a picture of someone trying desperately to stay in her daughter's life, while Alex's lawyer, a friend of his family's, built a narrative of instability. There were pages of her begging for joint custody, offers for supervised visits, letters from a therapist, all ignored. The final ruling was full custody to Alex, no visitation to Emma. The judge cited lack of stability and potential risk based on a single incident. Emma had once forgotten to buckle Lila's car seat during a 10-minute drive. She reported herself when she realized. I confronted him the next morning. He was making coffee. Lila was watching cartoons in the living room. I asked him, "Why didn't you ever tell me Emma tried to stay in her daughter's life?" He went still. "Where is this coming from?" he asked. I told him I read the court files, that I'd spoken to Jess, that I knew he wasn't telling the truth. He got defensive, said I had no idea what it was like, that Emma was unpredictable, that she cried too much, that she was dangerous. But she never hurt Lila, I said. He didn't answer. I asked if he loved her, not Emma, but Lila enough to tell her the truth, that her mother didn't leave her, that maybe one day she'd want to know. He told me, Lila doesn't need that woman confusing her. She has us. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't marry him. Not because I stopped loving Lila, but because I couldn't legally tie myself to a man who would lie like that, who would erase a woman from her child's life just because it was easier than CO parenting, who would make me complicit in a lie every day for the rest of our lives. I left 2 days before the wedding. I called my parents. I packed a bag. I told him I needed time, and that I couldn't go through with it until he told Lila the truth and gave Emma a chance to be part of her life again. He lost it, said I was destroying our family, that I'd traumatized Lila, that Emma would ruin everything. He called my family, told them I was having cold feet, told mutual friends I was manipulated by a crazy ex. I stayed quiet. I didn't defend myself. Jess stood by me. So did a few others. My parents were shocked but supportive. My MOM said, "If you walked away, you had a reason. It's been 3 months. I haven't spoken to Alex since I left. I've seen Lila once at a park from across the lawn. I didn't approach. I miss her more than I can explain. Last week, Emma emailed me, said thank you, said she was filing again, this time with new evidence, support letters, therapy records, and my silent blessing. Alex is furious. He sent me a text that just said, 'You're the reason my daughter is going to grow up confused and broken. I hope you're proud. So now, I ask you, Reddit, am I the a-hole for walking away from the man I loved and helping reconnect his daughter with the mother he tried to erase? Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my family's ancestral home to my brother after he came out of rehab, even though it was promised to him before our parents died? I, 35F, grew up in a small, picturesque town in Maine where everyone knows everyone and secrets don't stay buried for long. Our family wasn't rich, but we had something no one else did. A sprawling old colonial house that sat at the top of a cliff overlooking the sea. The kind of place that looked like it belonged in a novel. Wide wraparound porch, tall white columns, salt-stained shingles, and a history that went back 6 generations. Locals called it the Ashcroft House, even though our last name was Bennett. It was just what everyone called it. My brother Ethan, 38M, and I were born in that house. We ran barefoot through its creaky halls, held 4th of July bonfires in the backyard, played flashlight tag in the attic. But while I grew up loving the house for what it represented, safety, history, home, Ethan saw it as a weight. He hated how isolated it felt, hated that it needed constant repairs, hated the ghosts our grandparents talked about. They meant trauma, not actual spirits. He moved out at 18 and never looked back. I stayed. Ethan and I were always opposites. He was wild, magnetic, and impulsive. I was cautious, sensitive, and loyal. He got the attention, the girls, the big dreams. I was the one who remembered birthdays and made sure Mom took her blood pressure meds. When our dad died unexpectedly of a heart attack when I was 21, Ethan was in Costa Rica finding himself. I was the one who flew home from college, organized the funeral, and held Mom together after Dad's death. Ethan returned for a little while. He inherited half of the insurance money and blew through it within 2 years. Tried to start a bar, crashed a car, dated a married woman, went back to Costa Rica. Mom and I stayed in Ashcroft House. She never remarried. She never even dated again. She poured herself into community volunteering and late-night TV. I took a local teaching job and moved into the guest wing so she wouldn't be alone. When Ethan came back again 5 years ago, it was different. He looked gaunt, hollow. His charm was still there, but dulled. He admitted he had a substance problem, mostly pills, occasionally coke, and said he was trying to get clean. He stayed with us for a while. Mom forgave him quickly. I was more cautious. We spent one long winter pretending we were a normal family again. It was the closest I felt to having a brother in years. Then spring came, and he vanished again, 2 years ago. Mom was diagnosed with ALS. It moved fast. Within a year, she couldn't speak, couldn't move much, could only communicate with her eyes. I was her full-time caregiver. Ethan didn't come. He called once, near the end, said he couldn't handle it, that he'd see her when she got better. She didn't. She died quietly in her sleep last summer, in the same bed she was born in. I was holding her hand. The will was simple. The Ashcroft house, the deed, the land, everything went to me. Ethan got $5,000 and a letter. The letter said, "Ethan, I love you more than you'll ever know, but I cannot trust you with the house. You've said before it felt like a cage to you. I know it's not what you want, and I hope someday you'll understand why I gave it to your sister. Take this money and start something new. Please don't come back to haunt her." He did 3 months ago. Ethan came back, clean, sober, 13 months out of rehab. He had a sponsor, a job at a non-profit, and a new girlfriend named Kyla who wore linen dresses and spoke in soft metaphors. They asked to meet me at the house. He looked different, older, weathered, but grounded. He said he wanted to make amends. I listened. I told him I was proud of him. Then he said he wanted the house, not to live in, to turn into a retreat for recovering addicts. He wanted to name it the Ashcroft Center for Renewal, said it would honor our family's legacy and heal the wounds of the past. I was stunned. I asked him why now. Why this? He said it was his inheritance by right and that Mom only gave it to me because he wasn't stable at the time. That he was now, that the house belonged to both of us. I said no. Not just because the will was clear, not just because I didn't trust him not to relapse, but because that house, every shingle, every crack in the wall had been kept standing. By me. I refinanced my car to repair the roof after a storm. I spent weekends repainting the porch. I fought the town council to keep it from being rezoned. I turned it into a small B&B last year just to help cover property taxes. It wasn't just a home. It was my life. I told him he could visit, stay, for holidays, even CEO host workshops in the carriage house if he wanted. But the house would remain mine. He got quiet. Then he exploded, said I was selfish, that I had always hoarded love, money, that I never supported him, that I was addicted to martyrdom and more addicted to the house than he ever was to pills. Kyla cried. Not for me, for him. He left. Since then, he's gone on some kind of campaign, posting vague Facebook messages about family betrayal, reaching out to mutual friends, even contacting our cousins and asking them to pressure me to reconsider. A few of them did. They said I was being greedy, that Ethan had changed, that maybe Mom was wrong about who should carry on the legacy, but the legacy wasn't a gift. It was a responsibility, one I accepted alone. Last week, I got a letter from a lawyer. Ethan is contesting the will. He claims Mom wasn't of sound mind when she signed it. that I manipulated her, that I coerced her while she was vulnerable. I am devastated. I thought I was doing the right thing, honoring her wishes, keeping the house alive, preserving our family history, but now I'm being painted as the villain, the bitter sister, the gatekeeper, the one standing in the way of redemption.so. Reddit. Am I the hole for refusing to give my brother the house, even though it was originally promised to him and he's finally clean now? Am I the hole for telling my sister-in-law the real reason I refused to be her surrogate and blowing up my family in the process? I 30 for F have never wanted kids. Never. From the time I was old enough to understand what motherhood entailed, I knew it wasn't for me. It's not that I dislike children. I have nieces and nephews I adore. But the idea of pregnancy, birth, and the life that follows, it just never sat right with me. I liked my freedom. I liked my sleep. I liked being the fun aunt who could give the baby back at the end of the night. My younger brother, Nate 30M, is married to Hannah 31F. They're one of those picture-perfect couples, high school sweethearts. Golden retriever energy, matching holiday pajamas. They've been trying to have a baby for over 6 years. Multiple miscarriages, several failed rounds of IVF, and 2 surrogates who backed out, one for financial reasons, one for medical ones. It's been devastating to watch. They wanted so badly, and Hannah especially has made her entire identity about being a future mother. About a year ago, they approached me with a proposal. They sat me down, nervous but hopeful, and asked if I would consider being their surrogate. Just the carrier, their embryo, their baby. No genetic tie to me. I froze. Not because it came out of nowhere. Hannah had dropped hints before, but because I didn't know how to say no without shattering them. And because part of me already knew what they didn't. I couldn't do it. I told them I'd think about it. Then I spent the next week spiraling. I knew my no would devastate them, but I also knew my body, my boundaries, and my truth. I had a panic attack just thinking about being pregnant. My therapist said it was valid. My MOM said, "You'd be giving them a miracle." My best friend said, "You are not a womb for rent." When I told them no, they were crushed. I tried to be gentle. I told them I loved them, but that I couldn't do it emotionally, mentally, physically. I offered to help find another surrogate, contribute financially, anything else. But Hannah shut down. Nate said he understood. But Hannah, she went cold, started avoiding me at family dinners, stopped liking my posts, started sending me articles about selfless acts of love. 6 months passed. Things were tense but tolerable. Then, 2 weeks ago, everything exploded. We were at my parents' house for my dad's birthday. Big family gathering. Hannah was quiet all evening, until we were cleaning up and I walked into the kitchen alone. She turned to me and said, "Do you ever think about anyone but yourself?" I asked her what she meant. She snapped, said I was a narcissist, that I was watching her suffer and doing nothing, that I had the perfect body, no trauma, no financial hardship, no obligations, and I chose not to help, that I was letting her dream die. I lost it. For the first time in my life, I didn't sugarcoat my truth. I told her flat out, I didn't say no to hurt you. I said no because I couldn't carry a child and look at you every day knowing what you did. She went pale. Nate came in at that moment and froze. My MOM heard the raised voices and followed. So did my dad. Suddenly, the whole kitchen was watching us. Hannah asked, "What are you talking about?" So I said it, in front of everyone. 5 years ago, the day after your second miscarriage, when you were drunk and grieving and decided that was the perfect time to kiss my boyfriend. Gasps. Silence. My MOM dropped a plate. Let me back up. 5 years ago, I was dating a guy named Logan. We'd been together for a year. Things were serious. He'd met my family, including Nate and Hannah. Everyone loved him. He was handsome, charming, solid. Then one night, Hannah came over to my place. She'd just had her second miscarriage and said she needed to talk. Nate was out of town. I poured her some wine. She cried. She said life was unfair. She kept looking at Logan and then out of nowhere she kissed him. I saw it happen. She pulled back quickly, apologized, said she didn't know what she was doing, that she was just so sad and lonely. Logan pushed her off. I kicked her out. She begged me not to tell Nate, said it was a mistake, that it would ruin everything, that it was just grief. I believed her, mostly. And because I loved Nate, I kept it quiet. Logan and I broke up a few months later, unrelated reasons. He never forgave her. I never did either. But I never told anyone. Until that night dot in that kitchen. Now my entire family knows. Nate was speechless. He looked at Hannah and said, "Is that true?" She didn't deny it, just said, "It was 5 years ago. I was grieving. It meant nothing." He walked out. My MOM burst into tears. My dad asked me why I never told them. I said it was because I thought protecting Nate was more important than exposing Hannah. Now I'm being called the grenade thrower. My MOM thinks I should have risen above it, that dredging up the past only caused more pain. Nate hasn't spoken to either of us. Hannah texted me once. "You've ruined my life." I hope you're happy. I don't feel happy. I feel broken, but I also feel relieved. Like I finally dropped a weight I'd been carrying for years. Still, the guilt lingers. Did I blow up my family out of spite? So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for finally telling my sister-in-law? A real reason I refused to be her surrogate and exposing a secret that tore our family apart? Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my dying brother custody of my daughter because she's actually his biological child and I never told him? I 34F never thought I'd be in this position. I've lived with this secret for almost 9 years. And now the consequences are clawing their way to the surface. I've tried to make peace with the decisions I made. But with everything happening now, I'm not sure if I did the right thing. Or if I've built my entire life on something unforgivable. To explain this, I need to go back. I grew up in a fairly ordinary household. My parents were strict, but loving. I was the quiet daughter who played piano and kept her room tidy. My older brother, Lucas, now 37M, was the golden child, athletic, charming, the type of guy who made people fall in love with him without trying. We were close, in that complicated way siblings sometimes are. I idolized him, and he treated me like the little sister who tagged along too much but always had his back. When I was 24 and he was 27, something happened that changed everything. Lucas had been dating a woman named Harper. She was gorgeous, smart, magnetic, and I hated how much I liked her. The truth is, I was closer to Harper than I'd ever been to any of Lucas's girlfriends. We used to go for coffee, talk for hours, even travel together on a family trip without him. Harper and I became something. I still don't have a word for it. One night, after Lucas and Harper had a massive fight, she showed up at my apartment crying, said she didn't know where to go, said he had cheated, said she felt like she was losing her mind. We drank a lot, and somewhere between the wine and the tears, we kissed a lot. It didn't stop there. That night turned into a weekend. That weekend turned into weeks. It was secret, intoxicating, and completely wrong. Harper was still technically Lucas's girlfriend, though they were on again or off again, and he was definitely seeing other women. But we never defined it. And when she told me she was pregnant, everything cracked open. She panicked. She didn't know if it was mine or Lucas's. Biology made it likely it was his, but emotionally, I felt connected. I wanted to keep the baby. I told her I'd raise it. She left. Harper disappeared when she was 5 months pregnant. No calls, no messages. I assumed she'd left the state. I tried to find her, but it was like she evaporated. Then, 2 months later, I got a call from a private hospital 3 hours away. Harper had gone into labor early and had listed me as the emergency contact. She gave birth to a baby girl, Evelyn. She never held her. She told the nurses she didn't want the baby, that she was meant to be raised by someone else. She signed away parental rights and vanished again, and I legally, emotionally, and practically became Evelyn's mother. I was 25. I moved cities, changed jobs, rented a tiny apartment, and poured my life into this child. I didn't tell my parents the whole truth. I said it was a friend's baby, that I'd adopted her. They didn't press her hard. They were conservative, but more shocked than angry. They didn't know Harper had ever been involved. I didn't tell Lucas anything. I couldn't. He was in and out of relationships, living abroad, traveling the world. He didn't even know Harper had been pregnant. He never asked. He never followed up. And so, Evelyn became mine. Completely. Years passed. We built a quiet, happy life. I never looked at her and thought of anything but love. I didn't feel guilt. I felt justified. Harper had left. Lucas had cheated, lied, and moved on. I had stayed. I had chosen her until last year. Lucas came back home permanently. Something about him felt off. He was thinner, quieter, with a tired look in his eyes that he tried to mask with old jokes. I invited him over to meet Evelyn. She was 6 at the time. He took one look at her and went, Pale. He said she looked like our mother. Like me. But there was something else in his eyes, suspicion. The questions started slowly. Who was her dad? Was she adopted? Why did I name her Evelyn, the same name Lucas had once mentioned wanting if he ever had a daughter? I dodged, deflected, changed subjects. But Lucas isn't stupid. 3 months ago, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Stage for pancreatic. The prognosis is brutal, maybe a year with aggressive treatment, probably less. That's when he confronted me. He showed up at my house with tears in his eyes and asked me outright, "Is Evelyn mine?" I couldn't lie anymore. I told him the truth, everything: Harper, the pregnancy, the abandonment. He sat there and cried. He asked to see her. I said yes. Since then, he's been visiting constantly. He reads to her, brings her puzzles, listens to her talk about dinosaurs and space and fairy tales. She doesn't know he's her biological father. She just thinks he's her cool uncle. Then last week, he dropped a bomb. He wants custody. Full custody. Before he dies, he wants to take Evelyn with him to California to stay with him and his fiancée. Yes, he's engaged to someone new. And her family. He says he wants to give her the life she deserves, surrounded by people who will love her, and that when he passes, she'll be cared for by them. That she should know her roots. That I shouldn't keep her from her real family. I said no. I didn't say no because I'm angry. I said no because I've been her mother for nearly 7 years. I've held her through every fever, every night terror, every scraped knee and birthday wish. I've stayed up grading papers at midnight so I could afford her ballet classes. I've sacrificed everything for her. And now, because Lucas wants to die with some sense of closure, I'm supposed to just give her away. I told him I'm sorry, that I'll let him be part of her life, that I'll explain the truth to her, gently, over time, but I won't let her leave. I won't let her be uprooted from her home, her school, her routine just to make his death more meaningful. He called me cruel, said I stole his child, and now I'm stealing his chance to know her before he dies. My mother agrees with him. She says I lied for years, and this is the price I pay. My father is quiet, but said, don't make a decision out of fear. Lucas's fiancée emailed me a long, polite letter about how forgiveness is a virtue and children thrive in loving, open families. My friends are split. Some say Evelyn deserves the truth. Others say I'm her MOM in every way that counts, and Lucas is just too late. Evelyn has started asking why Uncle Lucas looks so sad all the time. I don't know what to say anymore. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my twin sister after she stole the man I was going to marry, and is now begging me to see you parent her baby? I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. I've been living with this story in silence for almost 4 years, and now that everything has come to a boiling point, I feel like I need outside perspective to figure out if I'm just bitter and cruel, or justified. I 30 if I'm an identical twin. My sister, Delilah, is exactly 5 minutes older than me and has never let me forget it. Growing up, we were the twins. Everyone grouped us together. Same clothes, same hairstyles, same teachers. The works. But we couldn't have been more different personality-wise. I was shy, quiet, bookish. She was loud, confident, the center of every room. People gravitated toward her naturally. I didn't mind, not really. I was okay with being the quiet twin. But things started to shift in high school. We both liked the same guy, Nathan. He was charming, smart, and the first boy who really made me feel seen. I crushed on him from afar for over a year. Delilah knew. Of course she did. But then one day, she announced they were dating. I was devastated. I remember crying in the bathroom at school and swearing to myself that I'd never let her get between me and someone I loved again. Nathan and Delilah dated for about 6 months before breaking up. She said it was boring, and she wanted someone more exciting. He transferred schools, and I never saw him again. That betrayal stuck with me like a scar. Flash forward to adulthood. I went to university out of state, majored in architecture, and moved into my own apartment far away from my family. I needed distance, and I created a life that was mine. Meanwhile, Delilah stayed in our hometown, hopped between relationships, started a beauty blog, and got popular on Instagram for being the hot twin we spoke on and off. I visited during holidays, but we were never close again. Then came James. James and I met at an architectural convention. He was a fellow speaker, sharp, driven, magnetic. He challenged me in all the right ways, respected me deeply, and made me feel like the most important person in any room. We started dating long distance at first. Then he moved to my city. 6 months later, a year after that, we moved in together. Everything felt right. For once, I thought I'd finally escaped the shadow of my sister's chaos. About 2 years into our relationship, we got engaged. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet proposal at home, which was exactly what I wanted. We announced it to family on a video call. Delilah screamed with excitement, said she was so proud of me, and asked if she could fly out to help with wedding planning. I hesitated, but said yes. She booked a month-long visit. That month destroyed everything. I started with small things. James started hanging out with her alone, grabbing coffee, helping her run errands. She said she needed help navigating the city. Then it was twin bonding time. I tried not to be jealous. I trusted James. I really did. Then I noticed her wearing my robe in the mornings, laughing a little too hard at his jokes, brushing past him a little too closely. I confronted her once gently, asked her not to cross lines. She said I was being paranoid. I confronted James a week before she flew back. He denied anything was happening, but admitted that she was very different from me and hard to ignore. That line stuck in my brain like glass. 2 days before her flight, I came home early from work to find them on the couch tangled together, kissing. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I just froze. They noticed me. James looked panicked. Delilah looked smug, like it wasn't even the worst thing she'd done. I packed a bag and left. He tried to call me dozens of times. So did she. I blocked them both. My parents were mortified. My MOM begged me to forgive Delilah, said she's always had poor impulse control and that family is more important than pride. My dad took my side, but stayed neutral as always. James and Delilah didn't last, or so I thought. A few months later, they moved in together. They were all over social media. She wore the same engagement ring he gave me. I deleted every photo of him, every reminder of that life. I went to therapy. I told myself I was done with both of them. I grieved, and slowly, I healed. I started dating again. Nothing serious, but enough to remember I was still alive. Then last summer, I got a message request from Delilah. She said she was pregnant, and James had left her. I didn't respond. A month later, she called from a different number. I let it go to voicemail. She sobbed, said she had no one, that she didn't know how to be a MOM, that she regretted everything, that she wanted her sister back. Again, I said nothing. 2 months ago, she showed up at my door, crying, holding a newborn. She looked wrecked. Not the flawless Instagram twin, just a tired woman who'd made every wrong turn and was now begging for a map. She said she needed help, that she was struggling, that the baby, her daughter, Autumn, wouldn't stop crying, that she hadn't slept, that she didn't know how to do this alone. I told her I was sorry, and that I couldn't help her. She begged, pleaded, said we were blood, that I couldn't punish an innocent baby for her mistakes. I told her I wasn't punishing anyone, that I was protecting myself, that I had spent years watching her bulldoze her way through my life, taking what she wanted and leaving me to clean it up. I said, "You took the man I was going to marry. You wore my ring. You asked me to help you raise the baby you made with him. Are you out of your mind?" She broke down, said I was heartless, that she didn't think I'd stay bitter forever, that she thought motherhood had changed her, that she needed her sister back. Not for her daughter. I closed the door. Since then, the family group chat has exploded. My MOM says I'm being cold and that babies change everything, that this is my chance to be the bigger person. My dad says he supports me, but wishes I'd at least talk to her. A few extended relatives who don't know the full story are calling me selfish and vengeful. I've been called an aunt who abandoned her niece, a woman who values pride over people, a sister who can't forgive. And maybe they're right. Maybe I should let the past go. Maybe the baby didn't ask for this. Maybe I'm letting old wounds fester into something cruel. But I also know this. I gave Delilah so many chances. I let her take my friends, my dreams, my peace. I let her twist my life into something unrecognizable. And I survived it. So when she asked me to help her raise a child created from my heartbreak, I just couldn't do it. So Reddit. Am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she should never had kids if she couldn't handle them during her divorce hearing? I 32F have always been the responsible one in the family. I don't say that to brag, it's more of a title that got thrust upon me, mostly because I didn't make the kind of choices my sister, Lala 36F, did growing up. Lala was always impulsive. She dropped out of college twice, traveled across countries without telling anyone, dated guys who gave off every red flag imaginable, and generally lived her life by the seat of her pants. She's also the golden child of our divorced parents, which adds a whole other layer to this. I'm married, work in finance, have no kids, and live in a quiet suburb with my husband. I like my life structured and calm. Lala, on the other hand, has 3 kids with her soon-to-be ex-husband, Caleb. They got married after 6 months of dating and were pregnant by month 7. Their entire relationship has been chaotic. They fight, break up, get back together, and now finally, they're divorcing for good. Caleb cheated. She found out when their youngest was 3 months old. It's a mess. Now, I've helped Lala a lot over the years. I babysat through her postpartum depression. I lent her money more times than I can count. I've hosted her and her kids when she had nowhere to go after one of her blowouts with Caleb. I even helped her get a job at my company, which she ended up quitting without notice 2 months later because she wasn't made for cubicle life. I've watched her kids, fed them, bathed them, taken them to appointments. At times, it's felt like I've been more of a parent to them than either of their biological parents. A month ago, she asked me to come with her to court for the custody hearing. She was nervous, and I agreed mostly to support her, and because I was worried she'd be steamrolled by Caleb and his expensive lawyer. I sat in the back, watched everything unfold. It started of normally discussions about the children's schedules, finances, living arrangements. But then the subject of Layla's emotional stability came up. Caleb's lawyer brought up Layla's history of mental health stuff she had told me in confidence. Her PPD, her moments of anger. That one time she called me sobbing from the grocery store parking lot saying she couldn't go home because the baby wouldn't stop crying. He painted her as unstable, dangerous, neglectful, and worse, unfit. I expected Lala to push back with strength, but instead, she crumbled. She started crying uncontrollably. The judge paused the hearing for a recess dot in the hallway. She was hysterical. She turned to me, shaking, and said, "Maybe he's right. Maybe I really can't do this. Maybe I'm just not cut out to be a MOM." And something in me snapped. Maybe it was years of stress. Maybe it was seeing her fall apart yet again in the most important moment of her life. Or maybe I was just tired of cleaning up after her emotional messes. But I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Then maybe you should have never had kids in the first place if you couldn't handle them." The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Her face crumbled like I had slapped her. She didn't say anything. She just turned around and walked away. The rest of the hearing was tense. She didn't look at me again. We left the courthouse separately. She hasn't spoken to me since. The fallout has been nuclear. My MOM says I was cruel and judgmental, and that I piled on when Lala needed someone in her corner. My dad, who usually stays out of drama, said it was a low blow, even if there was truth to it. My husband says I shouldn't beat myself up, that it was a moment of brutal honesty, and that sometimes people need a hard wake-up call. But here's the thing, I don't hate Lala. I love her. But I've been watching her fall apart and put her kids through chaos for years. I've watched her chase unreliable men and ignore warning signs. I've helped her pick up the pieces every time, and it's like she's constantly drowning and dragging the kids under with her. I said what I said not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I've been screaming it silently for years. If she couldn't handle motherhood, why keep having kids? Why create more lives to absorb her instability? Now she won't let me see the kids. She told my niece, who's 10 and old enough to understand more than she lets on, that don't think her mommy loves her. That broke me. I never said that. I would never. I tried texting, calling, even wrote her a long email apologizing for what I said and explaining why I said it. Radio silence. She blocked me on everything. The part of me that said it meant it. But the part of me that loves her and those kids is devastated. I don't know if I crossed an unforgivable line, or if I was finally saying what someone needed to say. So, Reddit. Am I the hoe? Top comment not op. NTA. You were honest, and sometimes honesty isn't kind. You've been supporting her for years while she keeps repeating the same mistakes. That said, timing is everything. You chose the worst possible moment to say it. That doesn't make you in a hole, but it makes you human. Let her cool off. She'll come around, especially when she realizes no one else will step up the way you have. Am I the a-hole for refusing to be my girlfriend's emergency husband after she told me she'd always love her ex more? throwaway account because this is going to make me sound incredibly petty, and maybe I am. I 31M have been with my girlfriend, Lana 29F, for a little over 2 years now. We met at a friend's wedding where we hit it off over our mutual distaste for weddings in general, which is ironic given where this story is going. I want to say this before anything else. I love Lana. I really do. She's smart, incredibly witty, passionate about everything from human rights to sourdough baking, and makes me feel like I can be better without feeling like I'm not enough. We moved in together 10 months ago, and things have been mostly great. We fight like any couple, but we've worked through them all, except this one. This one might be the end. Lana had a long-term relationship before me, a guy named Tyler. They were together from college until about 3 years ago. From what she's told me, it was one of those all-consuming first loves, but it ended, and not in some explosive way. According to Lana, they grew apart and realized they were no longer heading in the same direction. He wanted to travel the world indefinitely. She wanted roots and a career. I've never been jealous of him. He's out of the picture, hasn't reached out since they broke up. She's never compared me to him, and if she ever brought him up, it was in passing, and usually to talk about some lesson she learned. It felt secure. I felt secure. Then came last weekend. We were out to dinner with her close friends. I like them. They're loud and a little overly involved in each other's lives, but they've always welcomed me warmly. There were drinks, laughter, stories, and somehow the conversation veered into backup plans. You know the type. If we're not married by 40, let's just marry each other. That kind of hypothetical banter. Everyone started jokingly naming their emergency spouses. Some of them named each other. Others named celebrities. One of her friends, Megan, said to me, "Bet you feel safe Lana would totally name you." Lana laughed. But then she said, and I quote, "Honestly, I think if I were ever really desperate, I'd probably try to find Tyler." Everyone laughed. I didn't. I tried to brush it off. I even managed a smile. But I couldn't stop thinking about it for the rest of the night. When we got home, I told her that it really bothered me. I expected her to say she was joking, that it didn't mean anything. Instead, she got quiet. Then she said this: "I love you. I chose you. But he was my first love. I don't think I'll ever feel that way about anyone again." It was different. If I got to the end of my life alone, I think I'd want to go out with someone who knew that version of me. I don't know how to explain what that did to me. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just sat there. Then I asked her, as calmly as I could, if you got a call from him tomorrow saying he made a mistake and wanted you back, what would you do? She didn't answer immediately, but eventually she said I'd have to think about it. So I got up. I didn't slam doors. I didn't storm out. I just said I needed some space and went to stay with my brother. It's been 5 days. She's called me, texted me. She says she didn't mean it how it sounded, that she loves me and wants to fix this. But I don't know how to go back to the version of us where I didn't know this. Here's where it gets complicated. My friends say I'm being dramatic, that everyone has a past, and she's allowed to have lingering emotions for someone who meant a lot to her. They say what matters is that she chose me, that real life isn't a fairy tale, and I shouldn't throw away a good relationship over a hypothetical comment at a dinner party. Even my brother, who tends to have my back on everything, told me that he gets it that sometimes you never quite forget your first, but that doesn't mean they'd actually go back to them if given the chance. He thinks I should talk to her, set new boundaries, maybe even go to counseling, but I can't shake this feeling. It's not that I'm angry. She loved someone before me. It's that when pushed to imagine a life where she had to choose someone not out of love, but comfort, she didn't choose me. She chose a ghost, someone who hasn't been part of her life in 3 years. Someone who, if we're being real, probably hasn't thought about her in just as long, and the worst part, I now feel like a placeholder. Like I'm not the person she sees herself growing old with, just the person she's growing old next to. So I told her yesterday, during a long, tense phone call, that I didn't want to be her backup, that I deserved to be someone's first choice, even on their worst days. She started crying. She said I was twisting her words, making her out to be cruel when she was just being honest. Maybe she's right, maybe. I want a romance that doesn't exist in real life, someone who thinks I'm their sun and moon and never once fantasizes about the one who got away. Maybe I'm punishing her for being vulnerable and telling the truth, but I can't unhear what she said. I can't unknow that, in the deepest part of her mind, She still holds space for a man who walked away from her daughter, so I told her I needed a real break. Time to think about whether I can live with being someone's second greatest love. Now I'm sitting here wondering if I'm overreacting. If I'm the a-hole for turning a stupid, wine-soaked comment into a relationship ender. What do you think? Am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for refusing to give up the inheritance my ex-boyfriend's father left me, even though it tore their family apart? I 29F dated Evan 31M for 5 years. We met in college and stayed together through all the messy parts, job losses, relocations, deaths in the family. All of it. For most of our relationship, I truly believed we'd end up married. We lived together, raised a dog together, even talked about kids and house hunting. Everyone around us thought we were it. Evan came from money, not obscenely rich, but old money, generational wealth. His father, George, was a sharp, intimidating, brilliant man who had built up the family's estate and was known for being fiercely private and fiercely loyal to the people he loved. Evan always had a complicated relationship with him, like he was chasing approval he never got. But George and I got along incredibly well. In fact, he was like a second father to me. He taught me about investing, gave me career advice, recommended books, even helped me negotiate a raise once. I'd call him for things Evan wouldn't. Sometimes we'd meet for coffee, and Evan would joke that George liked me more than him. I guess that joke became a lot less funny, because 6 months ago, George passed away from a stroke. It was sudden. Evan was devastated. So was I, but 2 weeks later, when the will was read, everything detonated. George left me to 5000, not Evan, not his sister, not any of the other cousins or extended family members. Me, specifically stated in the will, to my name, who showed me the loyalty and heart I never received from my own children. The room went silent. Evan's mother gasped. His sister turned scarlet. Evan just stared at me like I'd murdered someone. I had no idea it was coming. None. I was shaking. I cried. I tried to talk to Evan, but he shut down. The next day, his MOM called me a manipulative gold digger. Said I seduced an old man for money. His sister texted me pages of vitriol. Evan packed his bags and left our apartment without a word. I was locked out of the funeral arrangements, completely cut off. But the worst part, they started spreading rumors that I'd had an affair with George. I was sickened. George was like a father to me. There was never anything remotely romantic or inappropriate. We talked about books, finance, and life things Evan didn't care about, but nothing even close to what they were accusing. Friends began messaging me, unsure of what to believe, and Evan, he told mutual friends he felt betrayed, that I must have known this was coming, that I was playing the victim while sitting on $250,000. I didn't spend a dime of it. I didn't even move it from the estate account. I was in complete emotional free fall. I tried to call Evan 3 times, texted him, sent an email. No response. 2 months later, I got served papers, not from Evan, from his mother. She was contesting the inheritance, claimed undue influence, that George wasn't of sound mind, that I exploited him emotionally in his final year. My lawyer told me to prepare for war. It's now been 4 months of depositions, accusations, and legal hell. I've handed over every message I ever exchanged with George, every birthday card, every photo. They even subpoenaed my bank statements, trying to prove I was financially dependent on him. I wasn't. I made more than Evan for the last 2 years. Here's where it gets worse. 2 weeks ago, I got a message from Evan. First contact in months. He asked to meet. I said yes. He looked thinner, sadder, but also angry. He said he missed me, but he couldn't get past the betrayal. I told him again I didn't know about the inheritance, that George never mentioned it. Then he said, maybe if you gave it back, there could be a future for us. I just stared at him. He added, you loved me, right? Then why would you keep something that's tearing us apart? I told him love isn't conditional on financial blackmail, that I wouldn't rewrite history to soothe his mother's ego, that what George did wasn't about money, it was about legacy, and who he felt saw and respected him. Evan stood up and said, then I guess you've made your choice. I haven't heard from him since. The thing is, I don't want the money. I have thought 100 times about donating it, giving it to a charity in George's name, putting it into a trust for Evan's niece. But part of me, the part that's been vilified and spat on and accused of seducing a man I saw, as family, doesn't want to surrender out of guilt, because I did not do anything wrong. I didn't ask for this. I didn't even want it. But now it's a symbol. of how quickly people turn on you, of how fragile love really is, of how George saw me in a way his own son never did. My lawyer says we're likely to win. The will was airtight. George had medical evaluations within a month of writing it. But the emotional cost, immeasurable. Some friends say I should just give it up, that it's not worth the war. That if I really loved Evan, I'd do whatever it took to get him back. Others say, screw them, that I earned George's trust, and have every right to keep what he left me. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for refusing to give back the $250,000 inheritance? My ex's father left me, even though it's torn their family apart and ended my relationship.